Akinyemi Mudakoni, good morning. We'll be starting right away while waiting for others to join. We started a conversation on A to Z of Expo Business Financing about 2 days ago. We've done part 1 where we focus on the application and the issues around application and the importance of individuals ensuring that they give the bank comfort needed in applying for financing, especially Expo financing. We also mentioned the fact that every application you are making must make sense. If you are asking for bank to finance a transaction and the amount you are asking for is too high or too low compared to what is needed for the project, your application does not make sense. So if the bank find out, they feel you are not either competent or just trying fraudulent if the amount is too much. Also, we went on to talk about credibility and character, how vital they are, the fact that you need to demonstrate to the bank that the buyer abroad have character, he will pay on time and in time, and you should also show credibility, and the fact that all this can be shown via document. All this can be shown via document. Raf Abiodun, thank you very much for joining. Welcome and good morning. All this can be shown via document. So document to show the character and credibility of the buyer so that the bank will be comfortable. Then the next one we talked about, that was yesterday evening, we talked about supporting documentation. And what that basically is saying is that, look, if you are sending a proposal to the bank, you should have supporting documents. The essence of supporting document basically is to ensure that the bank is able to verify all your claims. Whatever things you are claiming that you can do or you've done, you are now providing the bank with documents to ascertain all that claim. That's basically what we are doing. You are giving the bank opportunity to ascertain all that you are claiming when you provide documents. And Tony Naimeka, thank you very much for joining. You're welcome and good morning. And this morning we'll be moving on and we'll be discussing equity contribution. And this shows commitment. Equity contribution, and this shows commitment. Equity contribution basically talk about the fact that if you are going to get a bank to fund a transaction, you should be ready to contribute to it. It's very common for individuals to want bank to fund transaction in which they don't want to put a dime. So if you want the bank to fund a transaction in which you are not going to put a dime, you are basically saying that when that transaction if anything go wrong with that transaction, you are not committed to fix it because your money is not at stake. It's only the bank's money that is at stake. So the bank is concerned about the fact that if this is your project, then you should put your money there also. Of course, the bank will be adding more money, or your financier will be adding more money, but at least you should contribute maybe 20, 30, 40%, or even 50%, depending on what you agree with the bank. But it's very important you know that you need to contribute. If you are not going to contribute, the bank will not be interested. And that's why we are talking about equity contribution this morning. One of the reasons many experts find it difficult to get financing from bank is because they fail to provide equity contribution. TT Elat Ujo, thank you very much for joining. It's because they fail to provide equity contribution. If you are looking for financing to finance an export transaction, you must be ready to provide equity contribution. If you are looking for financing to finance an export transaction, you must be ready to provide equity contribution. If you are not ready to provide equity contribution, especially for pre-export financing. For example, let's look at post-export finance. We'll be discussing this in detail later, but let me just jump ahead of myself. In post-export financing, I have shipped the goods. I'm now waiting for payment to come in, maybe in 1 month's time. But I need money now. For example, those doing cashew nut. Let's talk about commodity. Cashew nuts start in February. By April, May, season is over. And I want to do a lot within that space. So let's say I have 5 million naira or 10 million naira. I've been able to do 2 containers of cashew nut. Now, I'm expecting money by the end of February. And I did the shipment early February. But the season is very short. If I'm going to be able to turn over within a short time, I need funding to come immediately. So because I did transaction of 10 million, that's what I spent. Maybe I'm expecting 12 million, 13 million. The bank find it easy to fund that 10 million for me to go and buy because I'm expecting 30 million. Because I'm expecting 30 million. Why? Because I've already contributed enough equity for the loan I'm asking the bank for. So when I do a post-export financing, I've contributed my equity already. Because I've already put my money there, I've used it to do the shipment, I'm even expecting payment, and I have guarantee for that payment. I've given document to the bank is the one that sent document abroad, the bank is the one expecting that payment to come into my account in that bank. Case closed. Bank is willing to fund. Because I already contributed my own quota, the equity contribution. The equity contribution. If I have not contributed my own quota, then I'll make it difficult for the bank to want to look at my side. Now, that's on the post-export financing. But the one I'm even focusing on this morning is the pre-export financing. The pre-export financing. The reason I'm focusing on the pre-export financing is because this is a situation where you have to go and source the money. So you need the bank money, not for post-export finance. You need the bank money to go to the port, to go to the field, to purchase your product, to process your product, and to do the shipment. Peter Emenike, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome and good morning. So you can't say the bank should be the one to now do the funding in full. If the bank is doing the funding in full, the bank, in fact, they cannot be comfortable because the bank already saying, look, what if something go wrong? What if there is a loss on this transaction? What if the good was never delivered? What if the quality delivered was bad? What if the shipment was made and payment was not did not come? What if the shipment was made and the vessel capsized? What if? There are not what if along the line. So the bank say, okay, fine. We are carrying the risk, but it has to be calculated risk, and we should be able to reduce the risk. If anything go wrong, if you are putting a good chunk of money into that business, you will not run away. You will do everything to salvage it, and that's exactly what the bank wants to do. And that's why equity contribution is very important. This is known as the skin in the game, having a skin in the game. Having a skin in the game. It is very important for any exporter seeking for funding from bank to know that providing an equity contribution shows borrower's commitment. Providing an equity contribution shows borrower's commitment to the export project. It shows borrower's commitment to the export project because the borrower's money is involved. Because the borrower's money is involved. Because the borrower is part of the transaction. Because if the transaction goes bad, the borrower will lose his own money also. So there is commitment. Number two, it reduces the bank exposure to in the transaction. It reduces the bank exposure in the transaction. Why? If the total amount for the project is 10 million and you have already contributed 3 million. So that means bank is going to lose 7 million if I thought there is a loss. They will be losing 10 million because we both contributed. We are both contributing. We are both contributing. We are both contributing. So the bank is more comfortable. As a matter of fact, it gives the bank the confidence that exporter will not likely abandon the project midway since his money is involved. You will not abandon the project, at least reasonably. reasonably. Your money is there, so you will abandon the project midway because your money is involved. And the bank is very happy with that. So please, when you are going to request for a bank to fund anything for you, anything, not just in export, one of the principles is let the exporter, let the business person, let the entrepreneur contribute something. Now, what you are going to contribute will depend on the perceived risk of your transaction. If the risk the bank perceives is high, of course, they are going to ask you to add more, maybe like 50%. If the risk the bank perceives is low, the bank will not ask you to ask low, maybe 10-15%. Why? Because of the perceived risk. Mr. Shegun Olufolahan, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning and welcome. So this is particularly important for pre-export financing. Like I said earlier, that equity contribution is critical and important for pre-export financing, where bank is expected to fund the procurement of the goods. Bank is expected to fund the procurement of the goods, or to fund the production of the product, or to fund the raw materials involved, or to fund the logistics involved, or to fund something before shipment. If the bank is going to fund something before shipment, procurement of the goods, procurement of raw materials that is used for the production for export, then the bank expects you to contribute your own quota. And here is my take for the bank. If any banker is joining us, here is my take. A number of banks also make a mistake. They always say, okay, the customer should bring the money in cash into his account. So here is a customer who wants to export good worth maybe 15 million naira, and the bank is saying, okay, you are going to contribute 30% or 33%, that's about 15 million. And because the customer is contributing 33%, he has to bring about 5 million. What I often advise bank is, don't tell him to bring it in cash. Let him bring it in goods into the warehouse. That does two things for you. Number one, it shows that this person has the money, the equity. But more importantly, it shows that he can source for this material, he can process this material, he can produce it, he can deliver this material. And then the bank can now confirm he can deliver not just the material, the quantity, he can also deliver the right quality. So by the time the bank is bringing out his own money, the man has used his own money to bring part of the goods to the warehouse. That's a wise way to handle this. If banks decide that the guy should bring the cash, he can bring the cash and he's still unable to deliver because he probably does not even know how to source the goods. He probably is doing it for the first time. Or the previous one he did was done by someone else. So let him use it to bring goods to the warehouse. So we agree on the warehouse. Get the collateral manager at their warehouse. He brings the goods to the warehouse. He brings the goods to the warehouse worth the amount 5 million naira. Then the bank can release 5 million naira to him. Now when the bank releases 5 million to him, that means the bank have goods in his custody worth 5 million. The bank will release 5 million or probably 4.5. The whole idea is this. At no point is the bank unduly exposed to the exporter. And the exporter also is comfortable. The good is in the custody of the bank. And then they can go and source for more. This way, both parties are protected. And then for me, my pain, really, which is why we actually decide, look, let's begin to put this message out. Let's begin to educate people as much as possible. Is the fact that a lot of banks have lost money financing export and that discouraged them. And if bank is not financing export, we are going nowhere. When I started and I introduced this topic, this program, Import-Export platform, I talk about the fact that Africa is over 1 billion people. EU is about 500 million people. Africa is contributing 2.6% of total export or trade in the world. 1.2 billion people. Europe is contributing over 30%. Over 30%, about 33% of total trade in the world. 500 million people, 30%. Times 2 plus 1.2 billion people, 2.6%. If we are going to lift Africa out of poverty, we can't just trade within ourselves in Nigeria. We must trade with other nations of the world. We must trade with other African countries. We must trade with the European and Asians and Americans. We must trade with other parts of the world for us to grow our GDP and per capita income and lift people out of poverty. So the challenge is this. If we are not trading, because the world is a trade center, we're going nowhere. And for us to trade large volume, we need the bank to fund. For the bank to fund, the bank must be comfortable that they will not lose the depositor's fund. And this is very critical and very important. So it's extremely important we understand why we're doing what we're doing, so that whenever it is you find yourself going to bank, sourcing for funds as an exporter, or as an investor in export business, you know exactly what to do to avoid loss of your money. It is also important for exporters to know that the equity contribution does not have to be in cash. I just talked about this. It does not have to be in cash. It does not have to be in cash. It can be the goods that the exporter has procured, the goods that the exporter has manufactured, and currently under his custody at the warehouse. So it's at the warehouse under the custody of the exporter. Because it's under the custody of the exporter, the bank can then take over the custody with their own collateral manager. And when the bank takes over the goods, the bank can release money. So when the bank takes over, that means exporter does not have access to the goods again. It's now property of the bank. The bank can release some money for him to go and buy. And he can continue buying in that fashion. Second tranche, third tranche, fourth tranche fee. And as soon as the quantity is complete, then they can start shipping. And this is very good for commodity, for those doing commodity. Because at the end of the day, I can stockpile at the beginning of the season. And at the end of the season, when the price is going up, I can start shipping and ship at a good price. But I need to be very careful if I'm stockpiling, because the price also can crash. So you need to watch the market very well to be sure of what you're doing. But the whole idea is the fact that if I'm going to get a bank to come and fund my project, I must be ready to do equity contribution, meaning I'm having a skin in the game, to be able to give the bank comfort, to be able to show and demonstrate to the bank my commitment, to be able to let the bank know that if anything goes wrong in the transaction, I'm not going to elope, I'm not going to run away. I'm going to be committed to ensure I resolve the issue so that every fund invested eventually comes out. Depending on the nature of the transaction and the perceived risk, bank can request for equity contribution that can be as low as 10-20%. Bank can request for equity contribution that can be as high as 40%, sometimes even 50%. This is, however, subject to negotiation and policy of the bank. Like I said, the equity the bank will request for will depend largely on the perceived risk. On the perceived risk. If the bank can see a lot of risk, basically because of the destination you are shipping to, because of the person, of your own character, because of the competence, the competency issue, because of maybe even the payment method, a lot of factors can be responsible. But the risk management people in the bank will take a decision on what they think they want to do on this transaction. They will take a decision if they want to go ahead and carry most of the risk, or they want you to share the risk. But whatever the bank has decided to do, what is important for you is to ensure that you play your part and the bank plays its part. And you know what? If you're able to, if the bank asks you for 50% contribution and the transaction went well, you can ask the bank to reduce it to 40, and then 30, and then 20, and even 10, depending on relationship. Lastly, on this point, I will recommend that a financial institution should request for equity contribution of exporter in form of products. Ask for it in form of product. Why? Like I said earlier, it shows the bank the guy is capable of doing the transaction. He can deliver. Why? He's been able to deliver some to the warehouse. Being able to deliver some to the warehouse gives the bank some degree of confidence. Shows that you can source the product, or you can manufacture the product, and that you can meet up with the respected or requisite quality as agreed with the buyer. Requisite quality as agreed with the buyer. Very, very important. And then it shows also that this guy will not disappoint. Reasonably is demonstrating that he will not disappoint as far as this transaction is concerned. So this shows the credibility of the exporter because that's his result. This shows the competence to deliver the goods and make good his promises. Say Kabiko. Thank you very much for joining and welcome. Look at this statement. When requesting for export finance, don't expect the bank and indeed any financier to bear the risk that you are not willing to participate in. When you are requesting for export financing, don't expect the bank or any form of financier to bear the risk that you are not willing to participate in. You must be willing to participate in that risk. You must be willing to carry the risk. You must be willing to bear the risk for the bank to also demonstrate interest. Now remember, this conversation is not just about banks. The focus of this discourse is about the bank or financial institution to learn how to finance. It's about the exporter. It's about the exporter. For the exporter itself to be able to present a bankable business proposal, export business financing proposal to the bank, and for investors, individuals who are employees in one organization or the other, but fund different businesses, especially export transactions, which is being run by a partner or a friend, to be able to take an informed decision. Before you finance an export transaction, check the higher level of money possessed by the client. I'm talking to the bank now. Check the higher level of money possessed by the bank, which include credibility, companion, character, competence before the disbursement of cash. Chikemodi, thank you very much for joining. Welcome and good morning. If you are going to disburse money to an exporter as a financier, as an investment company, or as an investor or a bank, check the higher level of money possessed by the client. You know, when we think of money, when I was discussing A to Z of transiting from paid employment to self-employment in export business, for those that are just joining us for the very first time, if you go to my Facebook page and you check my timeline, about a week ago, I had a conversation. We had a discuss on this platform, import-export platform, and our discussion was transiting from paid employment to self-employment in export business. Transiting from paid employment to self-employment in export business. By the way, I have a DVD also titled Transiting from Paid Employment to Self-Employment. And I have another DVD called Retirement Planning. Retirement Planning. Transiting from employee to entrepreneurship. They are both designed for individuals who want to move from paid job to self-employment. But that particular conversation was on paid employment to self-employment in export business. Paid employment to self-employment in export business. And I was saying there that when you are raising capital, remember there are 5 levels of money. The fact that money is not cash, or rather, cash is the lowest expression of money. Real money is value. Real money is value. If you are able to create value, you will attract wealth. Real money is value. And I talk about the fact that the highest level of money is credibility, consistency of result. The next level of money is companion. Companion. That is relationship. The team you have that is working with you on that project. The third level of money is character, consistency of conduct. Consistency of conduct. The next level of money is competence. If you are listening to me, you are an employee in any organization, you are trading your competence for money. The bank hire you because you were competent. Ajakaye Ibijoke, thank you very much for joining. Good morning and welcome. You were deemed competent by the bank. That is why you were hired. By the telecom company, by the manufacturing company. That is why you were hired. You were deemed competent. So you have attracted cash with your competence. You will notice something, that credibility, companion, character, competence are intangible. It's only cash that is tangible. But what I discover is this, and I call this the law of money. The more the intangible money you have in your life, the more the capacity to attract tangible money. The intangible money is credibility, is companion, is character, is competence. The more of that you have, the more the capacity you have built to attract cash. To attract cash. So if you are requesting for funding from a bank, your proposal must demonstrate credibility. Your proposal must demonstrate relationship and the team you have. Companion. Your proposal must demonstrate character. Your proposal must demonstrate competence. And because it's export, you might have to demonstrate it not just for yourself, who is collecting the money. You might have to also demonstrate it for your buyer, so that it will make the bank comfortable to want to fund you. Credibility, companion, character, competence are higher form of money. So, and I say for bank, financier or investor, before you finance an export transaction, check the higher level of money possessed by the client. And this includes the credibility of the client, the companion of the client, the character of the client, and the competence as possessed by the client before disbursement of cash. Before disbursement of cash. Before disbursement of cash. If you do not check this, and you just go ahead to fund, you basically are going on the road to losses if care is not taken. To losses if care is not taken. We'll round up here this morning. Frank John, thank you very much for joining. You're welcome. We'll round up here this morning. And in the evening, we're going to be discussing another interesting topic. And this is on guarantees. Guarantees. How we can use guarantees in funding export finance transaction. So we'll be discussing that extensively this evening. And usually the time in the evening is 6 p.m. If you are joining us for the first time, our time session in the morning is 8 a.m. and in the evening is 6 p.m. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I believe you have learned one or two things. Let's keep the conversation going as you drop your question on the timeline. My name remains Dele Ayemibo. Thank you very much for joining us on the Import-Export platform this morning. See you in the afternoon. Have a great day at work.